Hey, it's Joseph here. As I have stated in the unboxing video, it is now time to review this camera, Canon EOS R50. And if you haven't seen that video, check it out in the description. I'll leave the link in there. And I can't review this camera without comparing it to the predecessor of Canon EOS M50 Mark II. But you might ask, why are you comparing these cameras that are within two different series or the families? Canon M series and R series. And if you actually thought that, you are right. They are different. But I certainly need to give you a bit more background information to explain all of this. And by the way, as a warning, this is going to be one of those long but thorough videos. So you can choose to skip to a part that you would like by finding things in a timestamp, or sit back, grab a drink, and watch this video for some good information. Oh, and as usual, I'll be focusing on the usability aspects of these cameras rather than comparing numbers and the spec. And actually, you can find a lot of those information online, and I'm sure there will be a ton of content out there doing those. And you probably don't want me pretending to know the technical aspects of these cameras, such as chromatic aberration and native ISOs and such. So here it goes. Canon developed the Canon EOS M series in 2012 as a crop sensor mirrorless camera lineup. They were known for being compact and budget friendly. So naturally, I was immediately drawn to the M series of cameras. I owned M5, M50, M6 Mark II, and finally the M50 Mark II. I currently own just two M series cameras. One is over there shooting me right now. That's what you are seeing me through, Canon M6 Mark II. And this one is Canon M50 Mark II. And unfortunately, Canon M50 Mark II was quite an unfortunate release of a camera in multiple ways. One, it did not have any hardware upgrades from the original M50 that was released in 2018. When the original M50 was released, people praised it as one of the best YouTube cameras. But as the years went by, it lacked some features and needed some upgrades to it. However, when M50 Mark II was released in 2020, everyone, including myself, was disappointed. The Mark II was essentially identical to the predecessor and just had a few software tweaks such as an eye tracking and video mic volume display on the screen. And these type of software upgrades should really be given as a firmware update, not a brand new camera. Yes, there is one physical difference to this camera, which is a tiny little font that says Mark II, and that's it. So for this, I'll be calling this camera M50 for short. I mean, Mark II had no difference anyways. And the other reason that this release was disappointing was because since November 2020 of disappointing release of this, there has been no M series camera or lens updates so far. Therefore, Canon doesn't officially say so, but many consider the M series to be discontinued. And moving on to the R series, traditionally this has been solely focused on full-frame mirrorless cameras. And since I was on the fence to upgrade to a full-frame cameras, the budget-friendly model of Canon EOS RP was quite enticing. But then we also started seeing introduction of some crop sensor cameras in the R series. R7, R10, and then R50. Now it start to make sense. They released Canon M50 Mark II with just software updates and steered all the actual hardware upgrades into R50. As you can see, their body size and the form, they're quite similar. And I'll get into the details of their features, but the features are relatable as well. And in regards to the price, they are priced similarly, $700 and $800 when you buy them with the kit lenses. So TDLR, for those of you who owned the original M50 and liked it, then the Mark II wasn't really an upgrade, but yet R50 is now a real upgrade to the original M50. However, unfortunately, the lens mount is different between these two cameras. I own several EF-M lenses, but they are useless for the RF mount cameras. There's no way to adopt them. Sigma 16mm f1.4 with EFM mount has been my main lens for all of my studio shots. And that's what you are currently seeing me through. That's why I'm just kind of pointing there. But I cannot use that lens on the R series or RF mount camera such as R50. However, if you own any EF or EFS lenses, those can be easily adapted to both EFM mount and the RF mount. So I refrained myself getting an ultra-wide EFM lens for this Canon M50, and instead I got the EFS 10 to 18mm, thinking that I may eventually go down the route of R series cameras such as R50. And right now I don't have the adapter, but I can use this lens with this camera. Since they don't have an ultra wide zoom lens lineup for R series, just not yet, so this would be able to fill the gap that you need. And it's relatively cheap lens as well. And for this specific video, I think a lot of people are going to purchase these cameras with the kit lenses. Therefore, I'll actually compare the kit lenses first. Frankly, I like these kit lenses as they offer a good range of zoom and much more compact than other type of lenses, making the whole setup quite light and small. On the M50 kit lens, I don't know if you can see the gaff tape over here. It's kind of hard to show on camera, but this is there because I wanted to wedge a tiny plastic piece on the lens release switch. This release switch is there to keep the lens collapsed to be compact when not shooting. And I do like how it can be so compact altogether, but I found pushing this switch and twisting it to start shooting was quite cumbersome. And by wedging a small tiny piece of plastic underside and just holding it in place with the gaff tape, allow me to just twist whenever I want to. It provides just enough of snap or click so I can just lock it in position onto the widest spot of this lens even without looking, and I'll be good to go in terms of shooting. It's kind of hard to explain all of that since this is sort of a hack that I just developed, but it really works. By the way, I shoot mostly at this zoom range or the widest spot of this kit lens at 15mm and f-stop of 3.5. I feel that 15mm is just about the right distance for the arm length selfie videos, and thanks to f-stop of 3.5, I can get a good amount of light into the scene even in the indoors. However, on the R50 kit lens, the widest spot is actually 18mm, f-stop 4.5. This means that your shot is going to be tighter with less light, and it may not matter that you have slightly tighter in a shot, but you will also have to bump up your ISO to compensate for less light, especially in indoors. And inevitably, you'll introduce more noise into the scene, and that may be visible in your videos. However, the construction of this kit lens is different from the counterpart on the M series. There's no release switch on this kit lens. So you don't have to awkwardly push down a switch or some sort, just twist and it's gonna snap into the right place. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to do a cool hack like I did on this kit lens, but yeah. When they are collapsed, the two lenses are exactly same length, but R50 lens looks slightly bigger due to its larger mouth or the ring around where it meets the body. And I think this is due to the RF mount being physically bigger. And you may also realize that when you start using the lens and having it positioned at the widest spot, you'll see that the extension of the lens is actually longer on the R50 side. Despite the fact that M50 actually extends less than R50, there is a bit of a design flaw where the camera doesn't stay flat on a desktop or a surface like this. So it actually leans forward. It feels like the lens is ever so slightly too heavy. It doesn't happen when it is all collapsed. However, when you start extending it for use, it starts to lean forward. So it's actually impossible to take a straight shot when you're just resting the camera on a tabletop. Yeah, you can just avoid that by putting it on a tripod, but I just thought it was kind of funny. By the way, the lens ring and the cap size of these two cameras are exactly the same, or the kit lens is exactly the same. So you can put the same cap on both, or any UV filters, or any type of lens filters. And both of the lenses have IS, image stabilizer, into them, therefore they will both make a great vlogging lenses. And somehow I started talking about the kit lenses before even talking about the bodies. So let's talk about the bodies. And I would say they're mostly similar. R50 is slightly bigger and rounder. It may be due to the larger lens mount, as I have mentioned, but the difference is quite negligible. And if you were to compare the weight of these two cameras, M50 is a tad bit heavier, but unless I hold them side by side, you are not going to notice that difference. Either way, both are very compact and portable. And that's why I was immediately drawn to both of these cameras in the first place. Turning them around, the back is quite similar as well. Same size, 3-inch articulating touchscreen. I don't know if the specs actually different. I read up somewhere that R50 is better than M50. However, comparing the two, I could not tell the difference. And honestly, I never thought M50 was lacking in terms of the screen quality. So yeah, I'm fine without a huge upgrade in terms of the resolution or the sharpness of the screen itself on R50, even if it's the same. One of the notable thing is the fact that instead of a cutout that is positioned in the middle of M50 to open up the screen and rotate it as you like, on R50 you need to pinch from top and the bottom. There's a cutout for it and just swings out like that. You just flip it however you would like. And that feels somewhat natural if I were to really nitpick at it. And because of that, the info button on the camera is now positioned here where the cutout used to be. So yeah, it just kind of scoot down to the side on M50. Minor difference. Doesn't really make any difference to my workflow. And in terms of the EVF, I usually turn off this automatic sensor because every time you just kind of graze over or the screen to manipulate something, I hate the fact that it just turns on and off automatically like that. So I just turn off the sensor altogether, but I just turned it on so that I can kind of compare the quality of the EVF in front of you and be a bit goofy about it. And if I were to compare like this, I see no discernible difference in the two. They just look the same to me. Maybe it is actually different in terms of spec, but again, I'm actually not a EVF user. Yes, I'm one of those people. So yeah, let me just move on to the next point. Flipping over to the top side, you can see some difference in the two. The location of the record button is now flipped. So the R series has the record button over here, and then M50 has a record button on this corner. And the dedicated ISO button has been introduced instead of the multi-function button of M50. I already had set this multi-function button as an ISO, so I guess the Canon and me are thinking the same. And if you're thinking a little bit different, you can certainly change the functions of the buttons inside the custom button menus. And I really have favored the dial around the shutter button on the M series of cameras. But now the dial has been moved up a bit so that the dial is over here as a sort of a horizontal dial instead of around the shutter button. Not a huge deal, but if I were to pick a preference, I would have liked the M series implementation. The power switch and the mode dial saw no difference in the two. The side of the camera where the grip is, you'll see the similar looking port covers for the micro HDMI port and the USB. And in terms of the covers, this one swings out like this and just stays open like that, whereas on the M series you just have to hold it down to just uncover the ports. It's just a bit annoying. And as I have mentioned on the previous video, there is now USB-C instead of the crappy micro USB of M50 Mark II. Thank you, Canon, we finally have it. And this is actually big. And I'll talk about USB-C port in much more detail in the later of this video. So let me go on to the next points. You can see the same micro HDMI port on the side of the USB. And by the way, the wireless connection button is here on M50, but I never figured out what it exactly does as I've never used it. And because of that, even if it's gone on R50, I will not be sad. Around the other side, the microphone jack cover is positioned on both of the cameras, and they look pretty much the same. And I don't know if this is due to quality assurance, but the microphone cover for M50, my previous unit was very hard plastic and I could not open it with my nail. Therefore, I've broken off my nail a few times and I just had to use tools to actually pry it open. This specific unit, I can open it with my nail, although it is a little bit difficult. So most of the time I just keep it open and not close it so that I don't have to bother trying to open it. However, it just kind of dangles like that, and it makes noise when you're shooting and using external microphone. So I used to just have a tape over this so that it just stays put. But again, I'm nitpicking. However, all of those problems have been improved on the R50. So over here is now soft rubber. You can easily open that and then actually swing it around just like you did on the other side, and it just stays put and does not dangle around. Your fingernails will appreciate this. Moving on to the bottom side, there are actually two upgrades over here. First, the distance between the tripod mounting point to the battery door has been increased on R50. So the biggest problem that I've had throughout the entire M series of cameras is the fact that I cannot mount a regular size quick release plate on the camera. If I have a regular size tripod like this, I would not be able to open the battery door. Good luck trying to replace its battery as it runs out. In order to swap it, I have to obviously unmount. In regular size, quick release plate is just way too big, so it does not open. Therefore, I have to remove the quick release plate in order to get the battery door open. The distance between the mounting point and the battery door has been so close that it prevented a lot of setups from working. However, that is now addressed on the R50. Even this regular size quick release plate, I can just mount it like so. And mind you, yes, it is still going to cover when you are using the tripod. So it would not open all the way to replace the battery, but it is not end of the world since you can just charge via USB-C port here. If you just get it off from the tripod itself, this normal size quick release plate allows you to open the battery door all the way. So that is definitely an upgrade. Good job, Canon, you finally figured that one out. Quick release plates are now actually quick release plates, as you don't need to get them off the cameras. And yes, you can use this smaller quick release plate from Ulanzi F38. I'll leave the link in the description, and it allows you to mount it further away from the mounting point. Therefore, you are able to open the battery door. And I have been using this in all the cameras that I have. So definitely a useful one. I do recommend it. Oh, and also the other upgrade on the R50 is the battery. Canon M50 had the LPE12 battery, which is a lesser capacity than LPE17 of R50. And this one happens to be the same exact battery that I'm using on M6 Mark II. So I can use spare batteries of that in here too. And I'm sure you will be able to find the exact amount of photos that you can take, as well as a video recording with this camera somewhere out online. I don't expect a huge bump in terms of the battery life on R50, but it would definitely be much longer since the capacity proves that it is larger battery. Obviously, you are watching this video to find out how well these can shoot photos and videos. But I would guess more so on the video portion, as both are really video focused cameras. Again, I won't be pixel peeping, as I don't think that is something that I am knowledgeable enough to have a say about, but I'll be able to show you some footages in comparison so that you guys can see the differences in two. Okay, so as I start shooting in the arm's length of these two cameras, you can see that the Canon M50 definitely has wider focal length because it's got 15mm of focal length, and on Canon R50 it's got the 18mm instead. So it is slightly tighter. You can see the difference in the two, and this is what it looks like. And there's not a ton of discernible difference in terms of quality in the two, at least not on the screen. you should be able to see and hear me through these cameras to test out the built-in microphone of each. And one thing to note on the R50 is that it currently displays the focal length of the kit lens as well as blinking red frame around the screen to let me know that it is currently recording. None of that available on the M50 side. And in terms of the autofocus, it is able to track on both cameras quite well. But upon testing, I found that R50 is slightly stickier in terms of autofocusing on different objects besides human and human eyes. So I found that R50 is just better in terms of autofocus, and on spec sheet it does state that it is better in autofocusing. It's got more autofocus points, and that is evident when I have tested. And I think it is only fair if I were to compare same 18mm on M50 and R50 with the 4.5 of aperture value. So this is what it looks like, and I think they don't have any difference other than a little bit of white balancing difference. I should be able to match that, and that is what it looks like. Whilst in terms of the quality, I could not really tell a huge difference in the two. One of the things that I do want to note on Canon R50 is the fact that it is able to shoot 1080p in 120 frames per second. That was a feature that I really wanted on Canon M50 Mark II. However, yeah, that was not introduced. It is only capable of doing 720p on 120 frames per second. In this day and age, I feel it's a bit late, but yeah, better late than never. And also in regards to the autofocus points, I have mentioned that R50 has more autofocus points than M50. Therefore, it is able to lock on the subject much better than M50 does. And in addition to that, R50 has a couple of more object or subject modes for you to focus on, automobile or animals and such. And whilst on M50, it had only 2 video modes, auto and manual, whereas in R50 it's got 6 different video modes, which includes close-up demo mode. And let me just kind of show you that. I just need to turn it on. On the screen, I am able to just click on this here, and there are different modes available, and in here I can click on this to go to the close-up demo mode, and once you are in there, it will just lock on to you. However, if you hold up some sort of product, then it is going to focus on you. And that isn't the case as long as your eyes are viewed in other modes. So yeah, even though my eyes are seen, it is going to lock onto the product that is in front of me and then change the focus. So that is snappy and really useful for this type of vlog or studio shots where you're showcasing different type of product and this talking head type of video. So that's going to come in handy for me. However, it does not show me the focus box on the screen. Therefore, I have no idea where it is focusing on. I just have to trust that it is focusing well on the things that I'm intending to be in the shot. So yeah, it is what it is, but it seems to be working quite well. I like it. In comparison, in the regular mode, it is locked onto my eye and I can see the focus box, and even if I hold up a product, it is still going to lock on my face rather than the product in front of it. I just have to cover my eyes and it's going to start shifting the focus onto this, and it'll be fine for this kind of purpose, but I have to ensure that it covers my eyes. Otherwise, the camera is going to see that. And that is the same on all other cameras, so unless I hold it up like this, it is not going to change the focus. If I have it like this, it's never going to focus on the product that I want to focus it to. So this is a regular mode, but with a close-up demo mode, you should be able to just hold up a product and the camera is going to change the focus. And something that I wanted to test on these cameras are if I start shooting, it is going to be like this in the frame. But once I start the digital image stabilization of these two cameras for a little bit of stabilization when walking, the shot becomes tighter. So if I hold up the cameras in same focal length and walk away, and walk back, So this is what happens in the two. Both of the cameras seem to have a bit of a crop when using digital IS, which is expected because that's how it works. It is basically shooting a smaller frame to accommodate a bit of camera movement. You can't expect a buttery smooth shot when things are really shaky, but works pretty well if you got steady hands at a slow pace of walking. I don't personally shoot 4K, but I've been requested to try this and its autofocus functions by one of the comment. I am surprised to find that the R50's 4K does not have a crop. So this is 1080p footage, and I'll be shifting focus on the two, onto the car, onto the tree. And on Canon R50, it is able to go up to 4K 30 frames per second, but I'm going to resort to 24 frames per second because the Canon M50 is only able to go up to 24 frames per second. So let's set that up. And once we start shooting, you'll immediately notice that Canon M50 has crop in it. Let me compensate that by changing the focal length to wider. Yeah, even then, it still has a lot of crop. So Canon M50 has that crop, and I can change the focus to a tree and the cars on both of the cameras. So this is an autofocus test on 4K. It is not as snappy as 1080p, but you are able to switch in between. But mind you, Canon M50 has a huge crop factor. The funny part is the fact that Canon always marketed the M50 as the 4K camera. I don't think it ever was. It was just kind of silly to me. But yes, R50 is 4K camera because it has no crop and it is able to autofocus. If 4K is a thing, definitely this one. I have less say in the photos or stills as I typically don't shoot pictures through these cameras. But there are still fine photo cameras for occasional family functions such as kids' birthday party or school events. So you certainly can take some good photos with these. And yeah, I actually took all of my thumbnails with M50. So I would expect about the same. In terms of actual feature, I read that R50 now supports digital shutter. And so it can do 1/8,000 of a shutter speed. But in order to enable that, you have to go to the silent shutter function and turn that on, which is a little bit counterintuitive. And then you should be able to change it to 1/8,000. On a bright day, this can come in handy when shooting with a wide aperture for blur background. But it is confusing that you have to enable silent shutter to get this. And supposedly on R50, you'll be able to get faster continuous shooting than M50. But I'm not really a sports photographer, so I think I'm okay without it. And apparently digital shutter also allows even faster continuous shooting. And you also have digital teleconverter, which is allowing 2 times or 4 times zoom on R50. Not sure when I will really need that though, but there are some other features that I really felt that aren't really something that I would be able to leverage anyway, so I left a lot of them out so you can do your own research when it comes to photo capabilities of this camera. Something that I would definitely be able to have a say in are the ports and charging methods of these cameras. If you have seen any of my videos, you may know that I get really hung up on USB-C and charging capabilities of the devices. That's pretty much the same to all devices, phones, laptops, and the cameras. In this day and age, all devices should support in-body charging and should have USB-C port. And unfortunately, those two are missing in M50 and Mark II that was released in 2020. So I'm happy that R50 in 2023 finally brings us the 2 features that were missing on this one. Now I can connect USB-C cable with power delivery charging to get this camera charging. I could have this cable connected to USB-C port of my desktop and then the other end to this camera. And there is that green LED indicator letting you know that it is being charged. Mind you, it will only charge when the camera is off. And also you can use something like this Spigen 45-watt charger that is compact and has this foldable prong. I really like this one and I have it in my bag all the time. and I can connect this to my power outlet and the other end of the cable on there to charge this camera at much faster rate. I'll leave the link in the description. And if you turn on the camera now, you will see that there is a battery icon that is currently gray. So if I pull out the cable, you'll see that the battery is now white, meaning that it is draining the battery. But then once I connect that to the camera, then it turns into gray like that, letting me know that it is providing continuous power. What that means is that it is not charging, it is not draining the battery, but it is providing enough power to keep this camera on. This camera now can be on forever. The manual says that the battery may run out if the charger can't provide enough power for the camera, but that 45 watts should be plenty for this specific camera. Therefore, I highly recommend that one. I wish the Canon had allowed the camera to be charged even when it is being used, but it's not as a big deal as it does provide continuous power, and when camera goes to sleep like this, it's gonna start charging again. So it's a good implementation. I feel that it is not that hard to charge whilst it is in use. The smartphones and the laptops do that no problem. Maybe it is just something that is really hard to do for cameras for some reason. If any of you know the reason for this, please let me know in the comments. I would actually like to know. Regardless, now we don't have to carry around that stupid wall charger all the time to get the battery charging on the road and take out the battery and charge it and put in different one sort of thing. You just have to carry around USB-C cable that you already carry around because of your laptop and smartphones and charge your camera like civilized people. If you have a battery bank that supports somewhat of power delivery like this one over here from Anker, I'll leave the link in the description, then you should be able to charge your camera on the road away from the power source. So you are charging your camera as well as charging your phone wirelessly. If you have a power bank that is capable of providing more than 45 watt of power delivery, then you should be able to continuously power the camera as well. So I think the overall USB-C connection of this camera is great. But what about the connection to your computer? Actually, this is where my opinion about R50 has taken a drastic turn. Okay, let me explain about my current setup using Canon R50. As I often do these type of talking head and product demos at my desk, I've made a desk where I shoot, edit, and work. I have the camera mounted over there behind the teleprompter, which is Canon M50 Mk II, and then the teleprompter over there. I'm not recording via capture card or HDMI cables. This is the microphone over here connected to the camera, and then the USB-C cable is going down to my computer. Rather, I'm using Canon EOS utility to remote shoot with this computer. This helps me to monitor my video on a much bigger screen that I already have for this computer and control all the camera settings via this panel over here with my handy mouse that is in arm's reach and change stuff. And I've also got this power strip that is mounted at my desk that controls different type of lights and the camera power. These two are the switches for the lights, and this one is continuous power for Canon M50, although that is not being used at this moment. But when I have Canon M50 on the on position, then I can just turn this on and it will just power it on. Therefore, the camera turns on and then the lights turn on as I flip these two switches. And I just need to start Canon EOS app, then that would show up and then I can start shooting. And when I'm done shooting, I'll just close this window and Canon EOS utility will prompt me if I want to download those videos, and I say yes and download all the videos. And that's it. I did not have to touch the camera once. For overhead shoots, I use Canon M50 Mk II actually up here. It is connected to my computer via this cable and USB-C as well. And it charges up when it is not powered on. However, it is close by in arm's length, therefore I can just flip on the switch as I need to. And I can simply get all the footage off of the camera connected here because it's already connected to my computer and I can see it in the file system. The only time that I really get up and get behind the camera is for thumbnail shooting. I need to change the mode of the camera from manual video to manual photo. And I have set up M50 to have 2-second shutter delay, and I just click on the object that I want it to focus onto, line up the shot, pose, and then hover over the shutter, and then I just shoot. And you get the picture. And as I take the pictures, all of them are being transferred onto my machine automatically. Therefore, there's no fiddling with SD card, battery, or cable. A huge additional benefit to this is the fact that I can use these cameras as webcam as well. The EOS webcam utility allows your cameras to be used as webcams when answering video calls. You just do the same of turning all the lights on, power on the camera, and instead of running EOS utility, you just run the chat app and it will be recognized as a webcam. You can basically look like this in your video calls. This is actually how I hosted my live podcast last year, hosted using Google Meet. And the camera is just being used as a webcam. I personally find this workflow to be efficient and convenient. However, I don't think it's a very popular opinion or method of shooting videos. It just seems that people usually just record their videos in camera and take the SD card to offload it to your computer. This means that you have to dismount the camera or fiddle with your camera to get the SD card out, or I guess fiddle with the cable to connect it to your computer. And if you actually have some budget, people set up external monitor and capture card to set up and record externally. I also find that to be somewhat cumbersome, as you have to have many more devices such as DAC and different type of switches. And in that scenario, you would not be able to control your camera remotely. I already have a mouse to control my computer and monitor for my computer, so why not double them up for camera, monitor, and camera control? With R50, you can pretty much do the same, minus the webcam part. In R50's internal menu, you can find Choose USB Connection app. Then you can choose either photo import / remote control mode, or video calls / streaming mode, or Canon apps for iPhone mode. Scratch that last option, as I don't need iPhone in the mix, but if I select the photo import / remote control mode, I can do all these remote shooting that I was talking about, and also transferring all the files as I have mentioned. Due to the additional bandwidth that USB-C cable has on Canon R50, preview window of Canon EOS utility seems to be sharper and smoother than M50 as well. But sadly, EOS webcam utility does not work with this camera in this mode. I know, right? You have to switch the camera to the video call / streaming mode to have the camera recognized as a webcam. It appears that the R50 is built to be used as a webcam even without EOS webcam utility installed on your machine. That actually has a technical advantage, but in the usability aspect, it adds cumbersome steps just into the mix. You have to walk behind the camera to change the mode into this specific streaming or webcam mode. And thus far, you just thought it's just one more step, right? Well, when the camera is in the webcam mode, a lot of the functions become disabled. No more continuous power, meaning it is going to drain your battery. If you don't remember to turn it off after using the camera as a webcam, you will have no juice left to use when you pick up the camera next time. Yeah, I actually learned that the hard way. Also, you will no longer be able to access your files inside of the camera, and you would not be able to get into the menu system. None of the buttons work. So in order to get back into the photo import / remote control mode, you have to get behind the camera, disconnect the cable because you can't get into the menu system, and go into the menu system, change the mode, and connect the cable back on. And now you can do the full remote shooting. And because of Canon's track record, I don't know if this issue can be addressed in the firmware update on the camera. Maybe this is a temporary thing before they make EOS webcam utility compatible with R50 as well. I really hope so, because this basically breaks my overall workflow. And it seems to be exactly the same for Canon R8. Switching the camera modes to both transfer files, remote shoot, and webcam is not something that I want for my workflow. I just want it to be there and ready to be used all the time. And this is actually the reason why I decided not to go with Sony. Because all the Sony cameras that I've tried so far suffer from the same issue of changing modes depending on the use of the camera. So with that aside, as long as you're not intending to use your camera as a webcam, you'll be fine, and this may just be a temporary thing. And on the contrary, if you are a vlogger who takes camera out more than indoors, then R50 is really well suited for that kind of purpose because it is compact, light, and packed with great features. The only aspect I would consider in that scenario is the fact that the kit lens's widest is at 18mm. I find 18mm to be just a touch too tight for handheld shots, especially with the digital IS on. But other than that, R50 is just slightly bigger and better in many ways than Canon M50 Mark II. By the way, for those of you who's actually intending to use this R50 for handheld vlogging, either adapt EF S10 to 18mm lens like this, which may make up a setup a bit too big for you, but it's a great outdoor lens with a wide shot of 10mm, and this is not that expensive. Or you can consider RF 16mm lens for $300. It is currently on sale on B&H as $250. I'll leave the link in the description. That will also make a great vlogging setup that is really compact altogether. And as I have said, Canon M50 Mark II with the kit lens goes for $700 and $800 for the R50 and the kit lens. With that $800, you are getting a solid starter camera for YouTube. And is it the best one? Well, maybe. I would also consider Sony ZV-E10 as that was same price and similar feature as this camera. And I also had it reviewed against M50, so check that video out. Now I just need to go on Canon's website to see if they will ever issue a fix for this webcam problem. And if you have watched thus far, I really appreciate you sticking along. I hope you got some value out of this video. As you head out, please don't forget to like this video and consider subscribing to my channel to continue watching these type of videos, and I'll see you next time. Bye.